I would say, no, I would say, I would, no, listen, I say, see, I would say to a section of business, it can have some negative impact, but I have to see the broader picture. I would say first stage dealers, can they take credit? Yes. Second stage dealers, can they take credit? Answer is yes. And basically what was happening is, foreign shipping lines were enjoying the benefit of all these services. So, as an importer, whether I go to an Indian shipping line or whether I go to an foreign shipping line was making a lot of difference. So, in the process, I am actually supporting the Indian shipping line, the vessels with Indian flag. Otherwise, I can tell you, if government wants money from you, by hook or crook, they will take it from you. So, question is, if somebody, let's say you are talking about customs duty, I raise the tax rate for basic customs duty by 1 percentage point. Can you pass on the burden of basic customs duty? Answer is no. Basic customs duty is cost to an importer. So you would say, why are you burdening me with some cost which cannot be offset? I would say, I am managing my finances. I have to see the broader picture. In general, I am saying lot of money by the Indian shipping lines was being lost because Selvat credit chain was getting snapped. Some section, as you said, particularly the traders would suffer. And I would say, look at the economy. How much GDP a trader is contributing to my cause. But let's not get into these moral issues in general. As I said, if I look at the overall picture, what is taxable? All activities for consideration, less negative list. And when I say so, still there are lots of doubts. This was one area of doubt, so they say, irrespective of whether a particular activity fits as a service or not, I am entitled to declare certain services to be taxable. That is done by declaration under section 66E. Lots of activities are declared. If you have got any doubts, I would say this is a taxable service because government thinks so. No questions asked. Okay. In that declaration, this particular service, assignment by the government of the right to use radio frequency spectrum and subsequent transfer is a taxable service. What does that mean? Government auctioned the spectrum. Somebody bought it for a consideration. That consideration would suffer service tax. And you cannot claim that this assignment of right is in the nature of sale of intangible goods. Very often, I do not practice in VAT, but whether a particular transaction is a transaction in goods or whether it's a transaction in services is often an area of dispute. I will give you an example. One of my clients owns a brand and he assigned that brand for use to somebody else. Now, giving various citations under MVAT Act, the VAT authorities started chasing him, saying that your transaction is leviable to MVAT. Service tax authorities started saying this transaction is in the nature of services. It is a service which was earlier defined as intellectual property service. It's your intellectual property. You have assigned that property for use by somebody, so it attracts service tax. And now there is another Supreme Court decision in case of Idea, BSNL and everybody that you cannot subject the same transaction to VAT as well as to service tax. VAT is for sale of goods, service tax is for provision of services. How can the same transaction be subjected to both? And where we have ended up, we have got a writ filed with Bombay High Court just to declare whether it's a service or whether it's a sale of goods. I am not, I don't really object if I am categorically told that you pay this tax and you don't pay that tax. but you declare a principal and I suffer by paying both the taxes. That kind of anomaly or uncertainty is tried to be removed by this kind of a declaration. And why I would say so, look at the political background. By not auctioning this spectrum, how much money was lost? Okay, so I would say this is a high voltage, very sensitive area which has been declared to be amenable to service tax.
Whether it is challengeable in the court when you have to admit that it is deemed service.
No, I am saying it's a deemed provision.
Deemed, that is what I am telling you, without changing the constitution, whether government is entitled to levy the service tax as in the sales tax, deemed services, then deemed sales are defined in 366 article of the constitution.
See, I would say I'll look at it. I look at it in a very narrow perspective. I would say, how many of our clients have got really the willingness to fight up to Supreme Court? The cost.
We are talking a professional.
Yes.
What is your opinion?
My opinion, it is possible to challenge this.
Yeah. That's
But,
what we want.
but at the same time, what they would do is, again, I would go back and check up if that particular section starts with notwithstanding anything stated under any other act. So I overcome MVAT and all other provisions by that virtue. The transportation service was also challenged whether it is ultra vires or not. But I would say I will focus right now to the budgetary provisions. Okay. But point which I am trying to say is, if I look at it, the overall scheme of service tax, I spoke of negative list, now there is a declaration. Because services, taxable services are defined in a particular way.
When it is subject to service tax,
Yes.
no VAT applicable.
I won't say that, because just now I said
They will not say, you have to fight.
I gave you an example. I am saying both the authorities, chess, they cannot give any benefit to Vodafone. They cannot give any benefit to Nokia. Although there has been international pressure, everybody thinks that retrospective amendments are harmful. But I will show you, even this budget has got 3 retrospective amendments. Fortunately, all 3 of them are favorable. So when they are favorable to assessee, we don't shout. But as a principle, I would say there are 3 retrospective amendments.
Selfish.
One is, since the topic has popped up, I would say last year they had taken away certain exemptions to construction services given to government, particularly in the context of construction of dams, canals, ports, airports, where the contract was not with the government per se, but by a body appointed by government. I will give you an example. We have been fighting that in one particular exemption there was a reference which said road construction machinery will be exempt provided the contract is awarded by a road construction corporation. Okay. Now we have got MMRD over here. We have got SIDCO over here. In Hyderabad there is Hyderabad Urban Development Authority. Now Hyderabad Urban Development Authority, can I call them as Road Construction Corporation? I am talking about ambiguity. Point is, agency appointed by government but not under any act of government, doing a function which I would say is actually a state function. So if I give some service to some agency which is created only for construction of canals, only for construction of ports, construction of airports, should they enjoy the benefit of exemption which was otherwise available if the same service was given to government itself? Last year they took away the benefit, this year they restored it, and they said for the interim period we shall treat as if this benefit was always available to you. So I am saying the exemption which was taken away last year, I am restoring it this year, and I am saying effect will be from last year only and which would continue up to 2020. So I am saying there is a retrospective part in it. there are certain services. I am an exporter. I manufacture, since I was talking about Tata Motors, I manufacture some cars, I am exporting it to France. Now I pay excise duty at the factory gate. But there are lots of services up to export. The transportation from my factory to Nhava Sheva port. Apart from transport, handling, warehousing, expenses at the port, customs house agents expenses there, loading, unloading at the port, all these services, when I am suffering service tax, I was not getting the benefit of rebate or send back. So they said this benefit is available to you right from 1st July 2012. So that kind of a retrospective amendment they have brought into this budget. So I am saying they have indeed brought some retrospective provisions also, but there will be no hue and cry about it because those are beneficial to the assessee. They have even went on to say that this exemption for the past period, which I am extending it to you now, you will be liable to get refund provided you prove that there is no unjust enrichment. Means I have not passed on the burden to somebody.
Subject to.
Yeah. So one area, as I said, what is taxable? All activities for consideration, less negative list, plus declared services. So I spoke only in that context. Once you decide what are taxable services, I start talking about exemptions. Tariff rate is known 14%. I know which are the taxable services. Now I will think which of the services have undergone change of rate. One of the area which is sensitive for many of us is services provided by an advocate to an advocate or partnership firm of advocates providing legal services. This service by senior advocates is brought into tax net and as they call it as forward charge. So far all services provided by advocates were under reverse charge. And logically so, I am surprised at Gateway. All our finance ministers have been advocates, designated senior advocates. So they had favored most of us by saying that advocates won't pay service tax for the services rendered to their clients, but their clients would pay service tax for taking services from you. This is reverse. The one who takes service pays the tax. That's the reverse charge. Now senior advocates have been removed from the list of persons liable to reverse charge. So senior advocates now have to pay tax. Senior advocates designated by High Court as senior advocates. That's how I put it. The change in the definition only says senior advocate. This line, that designated by High Court, is what I have added. Because who is senior advocate?
In this case, what is the importance of the senior only? Basic idea.
See, very honestly, if I had to imagine, I would say there is going to be some trouble with the community. So as a leader of the community, let me start doing it. So next time I can tell others that even in spite of being a senior, I am doing it. Why don't you do it? That's the only thing which I can think of. Otherwise, there is no logical
They
reason.
can define it. What is the senior advocate? An advocate is the Advocate Act 1961.
I will go to definition, but as much as I remember, senior advocate, this particular definition or withdrawal is coming from Rule 21D, which says who is person liable to pay service tax.
True.
In that list, person liable to service tax has been amended by exclusion of senior advocate, but there.
It's there in should be notification number 25.
I will have to check that. I will stand
It's
here.
like section 16 of the Advocate Act
Okay,
1961.
because that is what is expected of you.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
They have very rightly
fair,
defined.
fair.
Sir, any senior,
Yeah,
but any senior advocate is located outside India and is giving service to an advocate in India.
This should be serious.
No, I would answer that without giving you a specific answer. I would say your solution lies in the place of provision of rules of service. When a person is service provider is located in taxable territory, service recipient is located either in taxable territory or otherwise, depending on those circumstances, separate rules have been framed. So I will refrain from answering a specific way.
Senior citizen is defined as such.
That's what we were discussing. Senior is not with reference to age.
You mean expert. Senior advocate.
No, that's what we said. Under Advocates Act, senior advocate is a defined term, and advocate, rather High Court confers the title of being a senior advocate based on their practice. Okay, in the stature of their practice resides, High Court confers that status. Original works pertaining to it is actually a list. I will not read it carefully. You can have a look at it. If there are some issues, you can go into it. But I would say there is a big list where exemptions are taken away. Original work for metro and monorail was taken away. Transport of passengers by ropeway, cable car, aerial tramway has been taken away. It has been subjected to tax. This we discussed. Last year, this concept has been introduced under the Companies Act, one-person company. So for that one-person company, which is more operational in what we are calling as startups these days. Somebody, a young man with a bright idea is starting up with a new business venture. To help him, this concept of one-person company was brought in. I would say one-person company, there is a inbuilt contradiction. Why don't I call him proprietor? The only reason is proprietor has got unlimited liability. The liability of this one person is limited under the Companies Act. So when such one-person company is floated, and if their turnover previous year was less than 50 lakhs, then certain facilities are given to them. One is, instead of filing monthly returns, they can file quarterly returns. The same facility is given to HUF also, which was earlier available only to partnerships and proprietary firms. And second part is, they are provided with the facility of service tax payment on receipt basis, not on accrual basis. Earlier, all services used to be charged on receipt basis only. We discuss various abatements, as I said, it's a list, anybody can just source it. I will not probably bother to read that also. But generally I would say there are lots of changes as far as transportation services are concerned. Housing services or construction services, I would say small flats, big flats, that distinction is done away with. Everybody is chargeable to 70% abatement now. Some measures which they say are introduced to reduce the litigation. I will refer to each of them separately. Indirect tax dispute resolution scheme is brought in for reducing the pendency at the commissioner appeals level. I believe all of us are aware about the appellate structure under indirect taxes. Original authority could be any officer up to commissioner's level. I would generally segregate them into two categories: commissioners adjudicating a matter and officers subordinate to him adjudicating the matters. The appeals against the orders of subordinate officers go to commissioner appeals. What is this scheme? Essentially, the case has to be pending before Commissioner appeals. Means you must have filed an appeal. What do? You pay duty, interest, penalty equivalent to 25%. 25% of duty. And there are certain exclusions. Where prosecution has been launched, NDPS cases, and COFEPOSA cases. Those are excluded from this purview. Case gets closed, you get immunity from prosecution. All of us are aware about the concept of prosecution. I will comment on that. Essentially, it means in any taxation matter, some duty is not paid, some tax is not paid, so you are required to pay that tax. You are required to pay interest on that tax. In addition to that, you are required to pay penalty. In indirect tax, I use two different terms. I use concept of penalty and I use concept of fine. Here there is no reference to fine, mark it. I would say penalty is on a person and fine is on goods. I evaded some duty, there has been duty demand with reference to some goods. I surrender those goods, I don't pay any fine. So fine is paid to retrieve my goods back from the confiscated property with the government. Point is, why 25% duty? I mean, penalty equal to 25%. What could be the logic? My understanding is, whenever a case is adjudicated, and in most of the serious cases, the mandatory penalty under indirect taxes is equal to duty. So if I charge, or rather if I confirm a demand of 100 rupees as service tax or customs duty or excise duty, generally the matching provision says penalty will be of equal amount. And there is a concession from that equal amount of penalty to the extent of 25% if I don't litigate the matter and pay duty, interest, penalty generally within 30 days of my adjudication order. So let's say some joint commissioner had passed an adjudicating order confirming demand of 100 rupee service tax, impose 100 rupee penalty. I filed an appeal. But I had an option that if I had paid 100 rupees service tax with interest and 25 rupees penalty within 30 days of receipt of that order, penalty would have been restricted to 25%. But I have made an error in judgment and instead of closing the case there, I have started litigating. And now probably dawns upon me, why am I fighting? But that option of reduction in penalty is lost because of passage of time, which I think the budget is reopening up that avenue for me. That you did not pay it in 30 days from that order. Think, you can still pay 25% and wind it up. So I would say, who are the people who would take benefit of this? I would say the people who have got weak cases, who were ill-advised to litigate it, and who have lost the chance of paying 25% penalty at the time of filing the appeal. So okay, pay it now, I wind it up. That seems to be the purpose. And prosecution, I was saying, apart from these monetary penalties, indirect tax statutes provide for prosecution in common language proceedings under criminal law for imprisonment. This principle is not hit by double jeopardy. So there can be monetary penalty and there will be criminal proceedings also, which we call as prosecution. So if you close this case, there will be no prosecution. Yes. But personally my feeling is this last line, that this scheme provides immunity from prosecution, doesn't really, motivate me in any manner. The reason behind this is, I am practicing this act for now around 25 years. I I would say I was privy to some cases which were already in the course of law when I joined the department. Means you can say I had another 10 years before I did it. And I have not come across even one meaningful prosecution which department had succeeded. Most of the times, the accused get so old, the officers get retired, nobody is there to pursue the case, and at one point of time the court say that I am dismissing it for non-prosecution. So point is, and second part is, even the launching of prosecution is not very common. Unless you are really a nut, department does not launch prosecution. So why are you telling me that you will not launch a prosecution? It makes no sense to my mind. But okay, anyway, they have given this benefit to somebody.
But at least I will get the benefit of 25%.
Yes, that much is there. That option was available to you, but you did not exercise that option in time. So this is an opportunity recreated for you. That's my interpretation. Again, I would say there is an element of technicality when I say point of taxation rules have been amended. What was happening is section 67A, which I am referring to, is actually the levy section. I would say service tax is levied under that section. And it actually decides if I want to know the rate of tax, which is the relevant date. That date of this determination of rate of tax is determined under these rules. When I say point of taxation rules, it actually means decide the point of time with reference to which you will decide the rate of service tax. And this is more significant in the context of a new levy. For example, I would say we are talking about Krishi Kalyan Cess. That Krishi Kalyan Cess comes into effect from 1st June 2016 as we say. It's a new levy. Now I have got a contract for which I have already provided some services. The services are going to be terminated after 1st June. I have received some part of consideration. I have raised part invoice. So I would say the time duration when you provided the service, one consideration. Second, have you received the payment for the service which you have rendered? It can be either advance payment or the payment would be outstanding. And third is invoice. You can receive payment even before raising an invoice or after raising the invoice. So these three events can vary from transaction to transaction. So in the context of these dates varying, which should be the relevant date? The rate today could be X. The rate after 3 months could be X plus delta X. Now what should be your rate of duty? Today's rate or 3 months later? That decision is taken under point of taxation rules. And what's happening is this is more relevant for the purpose of new levy. When new levy comes in, all these issues come in. For example, it could be such a simple levy on tuition classes. Now, levy on tuition classes comes in the month of February. But my tuition classes academic year has started in last July and is going to complete in May. I have received the entire payment at the beginning of the year only. Should I pay tax or not? So to answer these issues, these point of taxation rules are relevant. And in that context, what was happening is, as I said, rate of tax, the basic authority under Act is section 67A. Point of taxation rules 2011 were not giving any reference to section 67A at all. I should be saying the point of taxation rules 2011, if I start reading, the first line should say, in terms of the authority granted under such and such section, I am framing these rules. So that authority under which these rules were made was section 94. So rules were saying these rules, although in existence, were framed under the authority of section 94, which was a general rule making authority. So as a consultant at times I would stand up and say, look, these provisions have got no relevance because these rules have been framed under section 94, under which there is no authority to frame rules on the subject on which you have framed the rules. So I would say your rules are not relevant for me. You may say whatever you want to say in your rules. To overcome that, they said these rules, now amended rules are going to say, these rules are framed under the authority of section 67A read with section 94. So a technical one. But in this, at the same time, rule 5 is also amended, which categorically says this rule is meant and is applicable for all new levies. So there is a categorical declaration. Whenever a new levy comes in, I will refer to this rule 5 without any technical hurdles, whether there is authority under law or not. And of course there are 2 exceptions, but with constraint of time, I think I should move ahead. How much time do we have? 10 minutes. This provision I would think is important to be shared. Information technology software. Now what do I understand by information technology software? The law makes 2 distinctions for an information technology software. Information technology software is defined in a separate way, which actually for a common man may mean any software.